I'm not gonna live like you. I'm gonna kill you.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Colton 17. I'm Colton 18, and we need to talk about Mickey 17. So we are going to analyze this movie and the secret message behind it all, as well as explain that creepy ending and what it means. A little later, I'm going to be joined by my friends Lee Mazzio, Randolf Nombrado, and Ethan Ng to discuss their thoughts on this film, a discussion that I can only assume will be a fiery debate that ends with only one man standing, but that's okay, we'll just reprint whoever bites it. But first, I want to talk about what worked about this movie and how I think it is a major step in the right direction for cinema as a whole. Now, Mickey 17 is written and directed by Bong Joon-ho, one of my all-time favorite directors who actually came onto my radar following his Best Picture win with Parasite back in 2019. He has also directed films like Okja and Snowpiercer. Now, Mickey 17 is actually based on a novel by a similar name, Mickey 7, written by Edward Ashton. This book didn't actually come out all that long ago. It was released in 2022, and a sequel book was released in 2023. So, Mickey Barnes, portrayed brilliantly by Batman and Sparkling Vampire Robert Pattinson, along with his buddy Timo, played by Invincible himself, Steven Yeun, they're in some trouble following a failed business venture, and the two are on the run from a loan shark.
So, it's been 24 hours. Got my money?
So, with nowhere left to run, they sign up to serve as crew members on a spaceship headed on a 4-year journey to colonize another planet. Mickey becomes what's known as an expendable, meaning essentially that he is signed up to be the company's guinea pig for various missions, tests against deadly pathogens, experimental pharmaceuticals, etc. Now, the way that this works is interesting because when he dies, they just print a new body and upload his consciousness to that new body. But here's the thing, they are not doing what I would call a consciousness transfer. No, they are copying his consciousness over into the new body. Let me explain the difference. Think of consciousness, the electricity that we see firing throughout your brain, or even if you wanted to call it a soul. Think of that as you. Think of that as your physical essence that exists within your body. Now, when you die, that consciousness theoretically ceases to exist, or some might even say that you would transcend to like another plane, like an afterlife, that your physical consciousness would go away. But if there were some way to physically transfer that consciousness to a new body, you would essentially be obtaining immortality. But that is not what they're doing in this movie. The consciousness that is in the body of a Mickey when it dies, it dies or moves on, whatever you want to say. And that consciousness that is uploaded to the new body, it's just a copy that lives on that brick hard drive. It in itself is a new essence. It's a clone, it's a copy. And that's what makes this whole process terrifying, because every time a Mickey dies, they're actually dying. That Mickey and his experiences, they are ceasing to exist. It's not him waking up in a new body, even though it may seem that way to the clone. His consciousness that is in that new body, it just shares the same memory. So to that consciousness, it feels like they are immortal, but really they're not. And that realization hits Mickey 17 like a truck when he encounters himself, Mickey 18.
But now, once I die, it'll be over.
Now, we could talk for hours about the philosophy behind what it means to be you, what is the self, but, you know, there are smarter people than me who are better suited for those philosophical discussions. But what I do find interesting is Mickey's willingness to accept this fate in the first place. I mean, it's pretty clear that they aren't taking your mind and putting it into a new body when you die. They're taking a copy of your mind and they're putting that into a new body when you die. But he seems to not really come to terms with that fact until coming face to face with his own self, who has continued in life without him. I'm of course talking about Mickey 18. Mickey 17 seeing this branch of himself continue on and realizing that their experiences are not one and the same, but now two. This is when Mickey 17 actually starts to fear the eternal nothingness and finality of death, because he won't be waking up on the other side of that printer. He'll just be gone. And they perfectly depict this feeling of dread with the molten lava chute below that he is thrown into each time he dies, which is meant to represent, of course, the fiery lakes of hell that one's soul is cast into when they are wiped from existence. You can find that in many creation stories throughout history. Now, Mickey's initial embrace of this procedure and seemingly willful neglection of the truth, that all ties back into one of the overarching themes of this film and many Bong Joon-ho films, commentary on class disparity and desperation caused by financial inequality. Now, as you're about to hear, I am mixed on the actual execution of this movie, and I have some major issues with it, but simultaneously, I think it is a step in the right direction for the film industry as a whole, and I'll explain that here shortly.
All right, but first I want to bring on my friends to talk about this movie. We have some differing opinions here, I think. We have got Randolph 5, Lee 7, and Ethan, am I reading this right? You're Ethan 396?
Yeah, that's right.
You've been busy, man. Okay, well, let's get into this movie. Lee, I want to start with you because I think you have the most passionate opinion of this film. What did you think overall? And then we'll get into we'll talk about the ending. I want to ask you guys about that dream sequence and stuff. But first, just your general thoughts.
I thought it was perfect, honestly. I'm a huge Bong Joon-ho fan. And so this was kind of everything that you look for when going into one of his movies. Like, he's very anti-capitalism in every single one of his scripts. And I felt like Mickey 17 was an interesting take on it because this is him at, his most insane. Granted, Parasite gets insane in its own right, but this is him at his most, fantastical, I feel. And I don't know, I feel like this movie, with the way they did doubles, was, in my opinion, one of the coolest ways I've seen the corporate machine portrayed. It's very, Severance-y in a way, of, the reprinting and printing, and when Mickey goes from Mickey 17 to, Mickey Barnes at the end, the just changing and leaving from working for a system that is actively working against you versus living for yourself. And so I felt like this movie was very much if you want to see his work on a level where he's usually not as weird, this is the movie for you. And also just Robert Pattinson is, dude, generational actor. I
think all of my Severance theories have really just been about Mickey 17 comes to find out about the 3D printing and consciousness transfer and all that.
We might just be editing too much Severance, Lee.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
Ethan, what did you think?
Or
Ethan 396, excuse me.
Yeah, 95 had a little different of an opinion. But, Lee, I pretty much agree with what Lee is saying. I loved all the, there are so many more fantastical elements of this movie compared to something like Parasite, but the same, sort of message is, shining through, which I think was amazing. The movie, wraps up really quick, but it also just leaves a lot of, mystery at the end. I love the ideas. There's so many different ways I could interpret that end scene with Marshall being reprinted, right? And I think that is just really interesting. I don't think they'll make a sequel, of course, but I think. I don't know. I think just what the movie has to say, and it just came out at such a perfect time too, is so intriguing.
Randolph, I think you were more in my boat on this one. I thought in no way did I think this movie was bad. But I'm not blown away like our friends here. What did you think?
Yeah, I'm in the same, not to start a ScreenCrush Civil War here, but yeah, I agree with you, Colton. It's, listen, I thought the movie was fine. I didn't read the Mickey 7 book, and I'm assuming a lot of people didn't, so I'm coming from a film enjoyer perspective, right? Bong Joon-ho, he's a phenomenal filmmaker, like Lee said. He's a great director, and I kind of was expecting something more like Parasite and Snowpiercer for this movie. I know that's not fair to this movie, but it's Bong Joon-ho. How can you not have certain expectations for this movie? Not to say the movie is bad at all. I think it's one of the best movies I've seen this year. The acting was phenomenal. Batman did a great job portraying different Mickeys. Mark Ruffalo played a great over-the-top Disney villain. And whenever Steven Yeun is in a movie, I always have a great treat. I always have a great time, and he's you know, this is the first time I've seen him portray a like a sleazy, like scummy guy. So I think he played that really well. But visually, oh my god, guys, it was boring. Like, for Bong Joon-ho standards, it was super bland, and I understand that they were trying to, you know, portray the mundaneness of the space colony and being in space, but I don't know, it just wasn't, like, every shot just didn't feel as extravagant and as you know, as theme conveying as Bong Joon-ho's other movies. Like, take you know, Snowpiercer or Parasite, for example. In Parasite, you understood that movie was about class, because whenever they would the main characters would be going up to the luxury home, they would constantly be going upstairs, and we were like, okay, we understand they're trying to climb the social ladder or climb the class, the different classes in their society. This one didn't really convey the themes of death and identity and you know, and colonialism as much as I wanted to. So I think that was one of the biggest gripes for me, which I think that it wasn't perfect.
My initial thoughts on the film were, like, okay, the alien aesthetic I really liked. It looked like a Ridley Scott film. I wanted to see, when the two Mickey 17 and 18 came together, I wanted to see, like, the look of the film then change, and, like, I thought we'd see them, like, go on an adventure and stuff. The movie just really felt like it drugged to me. Like, it felt like it was this 3-hour just really slow crawl, when really it was only like a little over 2 hours, I think. So that was my main problem with it. I think that it really could have been tightened up. I love the concept. I think the first 30 minutes of the movie were really tight, solid, and then it just kind of meandered to me personally. But Randolph, I will say, I did kind of like the commentary of the movie. And
sure, yeah.
You're right that it wasn't too on the nose. You're right. Or not very on the nose at all. But I thought some of this stuff was handled well.
I agree.
And you mentioned Mark Ruffalo. If you guys want to know my personal politics, you can find them all over my Twitter. That's not what I'm here to share. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And Mark Ruffalo, he's very vocal about his own politics.
Sure.
He was doing a President Trump impression, right?
I believe
okay.
he's actually come out in interviews and said, I read an article about how he got in the dictator mindset. I actually am insanely surprised with both of your takes of this not being, like, heavy-handed, because I walked out of this and my review is that this is the most heavy-handed Bong Joon-ho film I've ever seen. Like, I thought that this was, like, it was, like, it felt very South Parkian in the way the writing was of the dictator especially, and
that's true.
To that Snowpiercer point, when they have that dinner with, what was her name, Kia?
I think Kai, yeah.
Kaya, okay, yeah. But that whole scene when Toni Collette starts singing and they're praying, like, I was watching this scene and I was like, you would not see this in Parasite, you would not see this in Snowpiercer, like, it was not it was on this line of, like, grounded reality and also heightened absurdism, where I feel like in an age where media literacy is declining, we kind of need that, like, spoon-fed, like, this is a bad dictatorship that also is maybe a little silly.
That's okay, so I think...
Yeah, that was my take.
To your point, where it being silly, I think it handled the themes of death and colonialism and fascism very well, where it, you know, there are moments of brevity that felt really refreshing throughout the movie. There's, oh my god, whenever he was being printed, and he would, like, come out and then go back in a little bit and then come back out. Just like a real,
the floor.
Like a real
printer.
The table just wasn't there. I was like, how do you forget to do that? It's a table.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
That's a great way of showing that these are just people.
Right.
You know, I thought that was a great way of showing these are just people doing their job, like, or slacking at their job.
The true heroes of that movie were the scientists.
Yeah. Oh my god, the science is unsung heroes in the narrative sense, not the writer sense.
You know, Lee, you make a great point. It was vague in some points to Randolph's credit, but it was also over the top at some places. And, you know, the more we're talking, the more I think I'm starting to appreciate the movie. I feel like I need to see it again. I think that's my issue here. I need to see it again. And I still think if I go back and watch it, I'm still of the opinion. Lee, I'm curious because you really liked it. Do you think it would have benefited from a little bit of a tighter edit? Also, you're an editor, so I'd like to hear your thought on that.
That's a good question, because I will concede Act 3 was not my favorite. That Act 3 was definitely where it started to feel a little bit like, once they got into the room where all three of them were like being held hostage by Marshall, I was like, okay, where, like, I felt like there were 80 different paths the movie could have chose to take, and the path it took I liked.
Yeah.
Didn't feel as, like, a finale as I thought it would be. But I do think that it needed the length it had to feel finished. I don't think that, like, directorially I would have made any changes on the editing, like, the cutting floor. Honestly, no. I can't think of any scene in that movie that I would have cut, aside from maybe with Kaya and Nasha. That whole subplot line.
I was literally just about to say
Yeah.
they could have cut that down to maybe like a few minutes instead of like the 10 minutes or whatever, how many minutes it ran on for. Just because, like, so Kai loses her girlfriend, is mourning, and then for some reason she wants to hook up with Mickey 17. There's like this weird subplot where, like, you know, Mickey 17 goes back to his girlfriend, and Mickey 18 is with her, and then they want to have a threesome. It felt really dragged on, and I feel like it didn't make sense for Kaya's character, and I get the point of the scene where, okay, they're two different people. Nasha was saying, no, they're one person. We get that throughout the entire movie, so why say it in this really dragged on scene? I don't know.
I just felt myself feeling like that that scene from Curb Your Enthusiasm where Funkhauser is telling that joke to Jerry, and then Larry is like, "Oh, would you finish the joke?" That's how I felt in the third act. I was like, I get it. Let's go. This movie, it talked about the theme of, like, death, and are you scared of death? Ethan, I can see the fear on your face that I'm asking such a deep question. Do you think, like, that ending scene where Mickey 18, I took it as him embracing his finality. Like, he knew that he was not going to continue on. Like, they did this good job at establishing, yes, there are copies of Mickey, but they're all different. I thought that was a great moment for the movie, him as, like, the final Mickey, being that final number, him embracing that moment and having that sacrifice in a world where, like, cloning and stuff exists. And they had that moment with Ruffalo's character where he's like, you're scared to die too. I loved that theme throughout the whole movie, and people always asking him, what does it feel like to die? I loved all that. Did you appreciate that overarching theme throughout the movie?
Yeah, I really liked what that scene was trying to convey, at least. And I don't know if this is just me, like, spitting out a million theories, but, like, before that scene happens, he says, look, are you guys seeing this one human? And he blows up that vehicle. I was thinking, like, how many did he actually kill there? Or does that one human have a deeper meaning in that moment when he blows them up? Is he distinguishing between him and Mark Ruffalo's character? Because he says one human, but he's blowing up him and Marshall. So I don't know. I like the layers there, and that in that part, I think it's less heavy-handed. But yeah, I think it was so powerful to, like, portray Mickey 18 as this badass, like, I don't give a crap, like, I'm the hard Mickey, like, guy all movie, and still when he's asked, like, are you scared of death, he said yes.
I also think that the scene where 18 sacrifices himself in front of 17, and then we have the moment where they are destroying the 3D printer, and Mickey 17 seems a little hesitant about doing that. I think in that moment, we are seeing him embrace his finality. Like, he is realizing when that 3D printer is destroyed, that's it. He's the last Mickey. That there's no other, like, printer or anything like that on the planet. We are seeing him, like, come to terms with that overall question, what does it feel like to die? We're seeing him kind of embrace what it feels like to die with his acceptance of the fact that one day he will. Lee, can you please explain the dream sequence to me with them
I would
printing
love
off
to.
Ruffalo and all that?
Yeah.
Because I'd love to understand it.
Yeah, okay, so when I was first watching the film, I also was like, what is happening right now? The way that I read it, though, is, and I was talking to Ethan a little bit about this, I saw it as, before that dream sequence starts, Mickey is, like, waxing poetic about how great Nasha is going to be for the colony, and just about how this new beginning is going to be so hopeful. And then we have the very scary dream sequence with Mark Ruffalo being reprinted, and I took that as not that there's a possibility for the dictator to come back, but a fear subliminally that Nasha could turn into a Marshall-like figure. And that it's all like a, in Mickey's head, a hypothetical fear of, like, this has happened before, what's to say that a dictator can't just be reprinted into this colony.
Can I
And
say something
yeah, for
really
sure.
quick?
No.
I'm sorry.
Shut up!
Anyway, throw me in the lava pit thing. Recycle me. Lee, I think, yeah, you kind of hit it on the spot. I kind of saw it as kind of a metaphor of history repeating itself, right? Because throughout the, you know, in the closing monologue, we were, you know, they held an election, and there was like this this committee dispute between Marshall supporters and, like, I guess the progressive colonists, and I think that, you know, that's a very real possibility that, you know, someone of these Marshall supporters will fill in that gap of Marshall, and that dream sequence was us. It was the movie trying to convey that, like, this happened and this will happen again. So I totally agree with you, Lee.
Well, and I think it also ties all back into the... I mean, they're essentially, especially come the end with the change in his hair and the general suit, they're going for like a Nazi-esque type thing with Marshall's character and him, like, embracing eugenics, and he even has that line about, like, a pure white planet for a pure race. I was like, oh my god. That having this ability to have him recreated, 3D printed, that is like, and I've talked about this with Severance, it's like these elite individuals not being able to accept the fact that, just like even those down in the slums, that we all share, like, that final moment of death. Like, everyone is going to reach that point eventually, no matter how much power, no matter how much money. And I think that also ties back into Mickey 17's embrace of his own immortality and seeing, like, oh, well, this 3D printer, yeah, it can create more me, but it also ties into, like, this theory that you see dictators and stuff have, and throughout history, like with Hitler and eugenics, like wanting to create this pure race, they viewed it as like a way to continue their own, like, pure lineage type thing. So seeing them destroy that 3D printer and preventing, like, this dictator from being able to return, I think tied into all of the messaging that he was trying to put forth in the film.
Yeah.
It also felt a little like Star Wars-y in its main message of, like, nature versus the machine, especially with the creepers and all of
I
their...
love the creepers, man.
Oh, so cute. All of their little storyline. But yeah, I feel like that, as much as I said the third act kind of dragged on, I do love that dream sequence ending with the destroying of the machine.
Well, you know, it's also a commentary, I think, the movie is on humanity. I mean, death, of course, is part of humanity. It's something we struggle with as being, you know, higher intelligent type sentient beings. Like, your cat's not worried about death. Well, they are in, like, a primal sense, but, like, they don't dread about it like we probably do. They're more human than we are in the sense of how man views itself. We view ourselves as, like, this united force and, you know, we'll take care of each other. But the truth of the matter is humanity has really divulged into just, like, savages. You know, we're perfectly happy to kill one another, fight over land, fight over resources. We're actually seeing that these aliens, as Marshall refers to them, even though they're on their home planet, he's referring to them as aliens, that they better represent the unity of humanity than the humans themselves. So I thought that's kind of what they were trying to convey there with the creepers. Ethan, what did you think about that dream sequence? Any theories there?
Most of what Leah and Randolph were talking about, but I was focused more on Marshall's wife character. I forgot the character's name, but the bowl of sauce that she has in front of the 3D printer, which was just a silly gag. Like all movie, I was like by the third act, I was trying to like really like figure out what that was trying to say, and then that dialogue that she delivers Mickey 17 in that dream sequence, where it's like, oh, this is my beautiful, pristine, like, thing I made that I would let even, like, a dog like you, like, lap up. And that, like, really pushed the idea of, like, sort of the, like, class difference between these two, but also, like, the idea that the elite see themselves as people that somebody like Mickey 17 should worship, like, or, like, a literal more meaning of like licking the boot of like your superiors and stuff like that. So yeah, I just thought it was a silly gag up until that scene.
Well, right. I think what we're seeing here is, despite our differing opinions, Randolph and I not being blown away, Ethan, Lee, you guys really like the movie, but I think that what we're seeing here is it's an interesting movie. It is, sure. It's a movie worth talking about and discussing, and whether our enthusiasm differs on it, we're enjoying the conversation, and that is what film used to be. That's what television used to be. Shows like, I'll name drop Severance again, are doing that, and we're kind of seeing that come back. And that's why I want to share with you guys next why I think, despite my mixed feelings on Mickey 17, it is a step in the right direction for saving cinema.
Okay, so like I said, this movie didn't blow me away, but I appreciate that it tried to. The movie industry is hurting right now. We're seeing sequels, prequels, reboots, and spin-offs consume the entire market, and for the most part, they're yielding underwhelming results both in quality and financially. For a little while there, it seemed like the movie-making industry had run out of ideas, and while yes, this movie is based on a book, it still felt like completely original. It was quirky, it was different, it took risks, it took on challenging topics in our culture, and it brought attention to important issues that we all face, whether it be money struggles, romantic entanglements, loyalty, self-preservation, and the fear that we all share, a fate none of us can escape, death. Now look, I could pick apart this movie. To me, it felt like a 3-hour slow crawl when the runtime was only a little over 2 hours, and I think that's a problem. I think this movie would have greatly benefited from a 90-minute cut, but I still appreciate the ballsiness of the movie. I appreciate the weirdness of the movie, and while I don't think that this film will be for everyone, I do think it sets a good precedent for filmmakers and studios to start having a little fun again and to get a little weird. Be creative and start making movies again. And with that mentality, we are primed for some really great cinema to be coming our way. But those are just my thoughts. I want to hear yours down in the comments below. If you're new here, please do feel free to subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Colton. I'm Colton 17.